Hello and welcome to MKF 2131. This is Marketing Decision Analysis. So I believe in the last lecture we have talked about the admin, the teaching staff. Now we have to get back to business and we really want to go through what is in it. Excuse me. So my name is David Lee and today I would like to go through topic number 1, which is recap on core concepts. Now, as I said earlier, that I will be collaborating with Dr. Stanislav in recording these lectures. Excuse me. So there are 12 different lectures in total, out of which some of it will be taken by me and some of which will be taken by Dr. Stanislav. So if you are wondering why my accent somehow changed, or if you are wondering why you are receiving different voices, don't worry, you are still on the right course. You're still learning the right stuff. All right, so don't worry about that. But regardless, if you have any questions, if you have any particular worries that you really need to ask me, please do so. All right, you know how to contact me, you know where to find me, and you know where to find your teaching staff as well. Okay, so let's go through recap on core concepts. Now, in recap of core concepts, we are going to talk about mostly topics that are in MKF 2121, which is the market research method. Okay. Now, in market research method, which I'm not sure where you have taken that in which semesters of the year. All right. So I hope it's not too far away. So at least that the material are still fresh on your mind. All right, so there are different things that we have to talk about. The first one will be the scale properties, right? So scale properties, you have a properties such as nominal, ordinal, scales, interval, and ratio. All right, so these are the scales that we are going to talk about. You might not heard about scale properties, but you probably heard about all these 4 different scales that I've talked about just now. And then after, we're going to talk about the core concept, which I believe that you have been in every, at least statistics subjects or in market research, you have been exposed to correlation, you have been exposed to regression. So again, this is going to be another one that I want to stress out. Because why? Because some people might have forgotten about that, and I really want to just give you a brief overview of that. Last, we're going to talk about elasticities, a concept that you have touched way before taking even marketing, probably in economics in year 1, where you explain the law of demand and what are elasticities. So just a few slides on that. Just want to give you a brief idea of what's going on. Okay, so in terms of scale properties, as I said, there are 4 different scale properties, which are nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. And in these 4 properties, I would like to go through that with an example. So at least you guys know what's going on and you guys know what I am going to talk about. All right. So first, nominal. All right. So nominal, as I said, I'm going to use my pen to see whether it works. All right. Oh, it works. Okay. So it's assignment properties, or what we call categories. Okay, so when you are doing surveys, you have been exposed to quite a variety of surveys, whether you have been administering the survey, whether you have been regardless, you do the survey or you've been administering, that's fine. Now, this is interesting where you said that the values are not relevant. What do I mean by that values are not relevant? Let's see here. So let's say you have a question on what is your marital status. Okay. Now you can answer that by yourself, but then after that, I just want to go through the nature of the types of the questions here. Okay. Now, as you can see here, there are 4 different choices that we can do. The first one is single, married, divorced, and widowed. Okay. Now, and I assign that to numbers, right? So 1 is for single, 2 is for married, 3 for divorce, 4 is for widow. And as we can see here, values are not relevant. Why? Because all these category, single, married, divorced, widow, does not even have a value to start off with. Okay, they are just words. So because of that, they shouldn't have values associated into it. And these values, the one that I just assigned, is values that are there to help you to I would say, quantify your data a bit easier when you are in Excel or when you are in other programs. So that's what normally most people will do. They'll just put, okay, if respondent number 1 is single, they'll put 1. If they are divorced, put 3, and so on. Okay, so they're just not the exact values, but we're just assigning a values for the sake of ease in terms of data recording. Okay, now, and the second thing why values are not relevant, because I can really change things around, right? So like, for example, I could have 1 is for married, okay, my handwriting looks funny in here, and second is single, number 3 is divorce, number 4 is widowed. So you can see that I can really change things around. It doesn't really matter for me to strictly follow this 1, 2, 3, 4. I can really change things around. That's why this is what we call a nominal kind of scale, whereby you can really change things around. There are assignment of categories in here, and all these values, they don't represent the value itself. Because if they represent a value, I said if they represent a value, that means that number 4 is the highest. That means that this category is the most premium, or they have more value as compared to the rest, which is not true. Because in this question, we just want to check what's their marital status. We don't say that this is more superior than this is more superior than this. We are not making that judgment. All right, I repeat, we are not making that judgment. And because of that, these are what we call a nominal, whereby these values does not mean a thing. Okay, I hope you get that. Second, all right, it's ordinal. All right, it's the same which you have categories, but now, just now with no order, now we got an order. Okay, let me go through this. So an example will be, what is your highest educational qualification? All right. Now, as you can see here, it's like you might be wondering and say, David, this is the same thing as we looked at the previous example. Great. But when you look closer, there is actually some sort of order involved, right? I mean, first of all, you have to finish your primary school to get secondary school. So here there is some sort of a hierarchy effect, whereby the secondary is sort of supersedes the primary, all right? And obviously, diploma is sort of at a higher level than the secondary or high school. And undergrad is obviously supersedes the diploma and so on, as you can see here. So because of that, it's still a sort of like a categories outside. But at the same time, you see that the categories now starts to be in order, right? There is some sort of order going on in there. Now, because of that, this is what we call an ordinal scale. Okay? And in ordinal scale, you should present your choices. You should present your choices in order. All right, what do I mean in order? Which means that it can be in either ascending order like this, or it could be a descending order. So it could be, first you start off with the highest level, which is PhD. Okay, and number 2 is masters, and so on. Number 3, and until number 6, which is primary school. Okay, so you can do that but most likely people will put it in this way. Okay, now third, which is interval. Now interval means that now we start to see that the value do matter. All right, okay, but there is no zero meaning. Okay, so probably this is going to be the one of the example that you might experience. Okay, so first of all, what is the temperature in Melbourne today? All right, let's say today it's 8 degrees. Okay, and what was the temperature in Melbourne yesterday? So maybe yesterday is 12 degrees. Okay, now in interval, all right, so 12 degree, 8 degrees Celsius, all right, there are two things that we have to know why this is an interval and how does interval is different than the next one, which we're going to talk about that, is that the temperature in Melbourne yesterday okay, I'll just erase this. Okay, so Melbourne with Y, okay, Melbourne yesterday and Melbourne today. All right, so I'm just going to put Y, so Y is for yesterday. I'm going to put that here, so that's Y and that's T. All right, so we can say that the temperature in Melbourne yesterday is higher than the temperature of the Melbourne today. All right, now because why? First of all, value matters. In here 8 and 12, and in this case mathematically 12 is higher than 8, right? But the reason why this is what we call interval is because there is what we call no zero meaning. Now, what does it mean by a zero meaning? Now, zero meaning is it's an analogy of state of nothing, right? So let's, for example, if you have 0% in your assessment, what does it mean? Which means that you get 0. You didn't get anything. You get nothing. That's 0. I have $0 in bank account. Now, I hope not. But say, for example, someone has $0 in bank account. Okay, what does it mean? Well, he has no money. We can say that. All right. I have 0 apple today. What does it mean? I don't have any apple. So 0 is a state of nothing. All right. But when we come to interval, there is no such thing as nothing. What do I mean by that? So for example, if I'm saying, hey, the temperature in Melbourne tomorrow will be 0 degrees Celsius. Can we say that there is no temperature? Absolutely not. Because 0 is a state of freezing point in temperature, all right? At least in Celsius, 0 degrees Celsius, if you remember your physics correctly, 0 degrees Celsius, it's a freezing point, right? So because of that, we cannot say that there is no temperature. Okay, that's the difference between interval and some other things that we're going to talk about next, which is ratio. Now in ratio, this is the same. This is what I said about earlier, where the 0 meaning actually there. All right, so it means that 0 is a state of nothing, and also now because of that, distance is also matter. Sorry, not measure, matters. I'll give you an example. Let's say, what's your annual income? Let's say you are getting $100,000. Great, you love it. All right, and let's say some other dudes who finish high school, he's getting $1 million per annum. Okay, this is also per annum. So what does it mean? All right, so we can say that this is in dollars, so which means that there is a 0 meaning, which means that if you have $0, means there's nothing. Great, so that's ratio, and the value matters, right? 100,000 is going to be different than 1 million. We know that 1 million is going to be more than 100,000. How long have you been studying? For me, all right, give you my honest opinion, right? 24 years, all right? So I've been studying from primary 1 onwards until PhD. And in here, we can also say that why this is a ratio, because when we talk about the number of time that you have studied so far, we can say that if someone has 0 years, means that that person has not studied at all. We can say that there is a state of nothing in here. So because of that, that is what a ratio scale means. Okay, so I hope this makes sense about the video on what is scale, what is ratio, what is each of them. Now there is an exercise in here. What I want you to do is have a look at this, all right, and tell me, okay, I'm not asking you to answer this, all right, because again, there's no relevance in this course, but I just want you to give you an idea of what kind of scale or what kind of scale is this questions belongs to. Okay, I will give you about a couple of minutes, and then once you have the results, and then after that we will we'll see you in the next video to answer this question. Okay, welcome back. So I hope you're not asleep. Now in my lectures I'll try to actually do this kind of exercise where you actually involve in doing something, so at least it's not one-way communication, it's at least 1.5 way of communication, where at least you still do your stuff, although I didn't check on you physically, but I hope you guys do the exercise or activities that I'm preparing. Okay, first question, what is your gender? Male, female, others? What type of variable is this? Well, as we can see that this is male, this is female, this is others. It looks like category. So I can straight away eliminate ratio and interval because they are not numbers, right? They're not values in there. And then the next thing is that I can swap things around. Like for example, I can put female first, male. So therefore that you can see that there is no orders in place. Because of that, this has to be nominal. Pardon my handwriting because I'm not getting used to tablets, so I'm still learning how to use this effectively. What is your previous MKF 2121 overall marks? Fail, pass, credit, distinction, high distinction. Again, it looks like a categories to me, so I can cross out straight away an interval and also a ratio. But can this be nominal or ordinal? Right? Now, as we can see that there is a progression in here. From pass to credit, distinction supersedes credit, and high distinction sort of follows the distinction. Now, because of that, so it's not going to be nominal. All right, now it becomes an ordinal. Okay, next, what's your current weight? All right, now this is a very dangerous to us girls, all right, or women, but again, okay, try to stay away. But for the sake of this exercise, we are not asking you what is your weight, all right, we are asking you what type of scales is this. All right, now as you can see that weight, so if you have 0 kilogram, which means that you have no weight, right? Which indirectly it does not make sense in the real world, but in mathematically it's still possible where you have 0 kilogram means that you have no kilogram at all. Because of that, this has zero meaning there. A zero meaning is makes sense, then we are going to say that this is a ratio. Lastly, who is the best characters in The Simpsons? Now, I don't know whether you like The Simpsons a lot. I like to use Simpsons references in some of my lectures, so if you see that, then do laugh, right? I can't hear your laughter, but you just laugh. Who is your best characters in The Simpsons? All right, you got Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, Maggie, Milhouse. All right, who is that? Now, because of that, you can see that all of these names are not going to be values, right? Because there's no values associated into it, and I can switch things around as well. So because of that, that is a nominal. All right. So I hope this exercise helps you to understand scale properties a bit more. All right. So if you're still not sure, please re-watch this lecture. And if you're still not sure what I have talked about, do contact me.